And then we'll and then we'll discuss the results in small groups, again, in the same small groups, and we'll do a report back, discuss that together, and then we'll close with some lessons learned and next steps. So thank you all for being here, and we'll go into the small groups. In the small groups, I'd love it if you could discuss. We're going to do it for just 5 minutes. So your name, where you're from, maybe a little bit about your community and why you decided to join today. It's going to be a really short intro, but just to get to know each other a little bit.
I'm working on those. Give me just 1 minute.
All right, no problem. This will give people a chance to think about what you're going to say about your town and why you wanted to be here today.
We may have, Susan might have joined after we made the breakout room. Susan, if you'd like to join a breakout room, you should have an option available to do that. If you're not seeing it, feel free to come off mute and I can try to assign you to a room. Same for the person with the name G contest. Happy to help you if you're not seeing an option to go to a breakout room to introduce yourself.
I do need help.
Okay.
I don't see an option. It's Susan.
All right. I'm assigning you now to room 5. Hi, Sherry. We're just going into breakout rooms. Do you see an option to go to a breakout room for introductions? Oh, Sherry doesn't have her audio connected. And Paula, I'm going to go ahead and assign folks. Just come on back if you feel strongly about it.
Thanks, Annie.
Sure thing. Sean, we've got
Mm.
about 15 seconds left. Do you just want to let the rooms close or do you want to broadcast a warning?
Okay, I think just let the rooms close. They should have the timing in the corner of their window too.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna press close now. Oh, it's saying all breakout rooms will close in 1 minute.
I guess you get a buffer of 1 minute.
Yeah,
I'm back.
yeah. All right, is everyone back? I think so. Um, great. So I'll dive right. I hope that you guys were able to get to know each other a little bit. And I wanted to I just want to dive right in because we've got a lot to talk about. So this is the survey results deep dive. Most of you probably took the survey that we sent out, and this is the results that we're going to go through. Um, I just want to start with a little note about why we did the survey. First of all, I'm the new organizing director. I just started late last year, and I really wanted to get to know the network and find out where people are coming from and what people wanted. And I'm hoping that this survey is going to inform the approach of how we envision and implement an organizing program going forward. We imagined focusing on local organizing and local issues, so that's why this survey is so important to informing what we do in the future. This would be in addition to probably the other work that you're familiar with from ruralorganizing.org, our national work on rural prosperity policy and electoral politics. We're using the survey to figure out how to best use our capacity to serve the network. So we talked in the survey about two main topics. First, what are the communities where you live? What are the communities where you live like? And what do you want to see from ruralorganizing.org? So we sent out the survey to the rural organizing's list and we got an amazing response. We got a response of 847 people filled out that survey from nearly all 50 states. And as you can see, it's the majority of folks are from small towns and rural areas. And overwhelmingly, it's from small towns, rural areas, and suburbs. So we're getting a snapshot of a very specific constituency that we think is really important. And as you can see here, this is a map of where the responses came from. And you can see here that they really came from all over. They came from coast to coast, north to south, even Alaska and Hawaii. And there was higher density of responses where there was higher population density east of the Mississippi River. So although it's a small sample, we're really, really happy with the response, 850 or 847 responses. And we're really happy with what a snapshot this is of the country. So when we developed the questions on the survey, we developed them by having one-on-ones with members and trying to figure out what people were experiencing and what some trends were that we could pull out. And we were particularly interested in authoritarianism at the local level. Now, authoritarianism is one of those words that has a lot of different definitions and a lot of people define it in different ways. I like this definition from Protect Democracy, which laid out an authoritarian playbook and what authoritarians actually do. So authoritarianism can be, exemplified by targeting vulnerable community. It's an overall anti-democratic project to kind of undermine democracy. And they do that by targeting vulnerable communities, stoking violence, quashing dissent, and these other kind of factors that are very common. So our theory was that in addition to authoritarianism at the national and state level, there are warning signs about authoritarianism that are happening at the local level that oftentimes get overlooked. So based on our one-on-ones and that we heard was happening in our networks, we asked about authoritarian warning signs, specifically book bans, anti-LGBTQ policies, anti-immigrant rhetoric, voter suppression, and threats of political violence. And what we found was that nearly every one of those authoritarian warning signs, about 25% of respondents said that they were experiencing those authoritarian warning signs across the board. But it wasn't the same 25% that was experiencing all of these warning signs. So when you look at all of the survey respondents, nearly 2/3 of survey respondents had at least one authoritarian warning sign that they were dealing with, which is very chilling. One of the most kind of disturbing warning signs that we saw was threats of political violence and threats of political violence. Now, we defined political violence very broadly to include people who were afraid to put up yard signs or who had yard signs stolen or vandalized. We think that's important because yard signs are a really important way to kind of let your neighbors know what your political leanings are, to start conversations. And if you're too afraid to put up a yard sign because you're afraid of violence, because you're afraid of someone vandalizing your house, that really limits public expression and it really limits democratic participation. So 25% of people, 25% of respondents said that they were experiencing this, and it was really widespread. So this is a map of just the people, that 25% of people who are experiencing political violence or threats of political violence. And as you can see, it kind of maps on to the overall geographic trends where it's coast to coast, north to south, a little bit more east of the Mississippi River, along with population density. So this isn't, as far as we can tell, a specific regional problem, according to the respondents, but it's pretty widespread across the country. Now, we also asked people what they hope to win locally. And by far the greatest response was, we're just doing our best to marginalize extremists. And the lowest responses were about local elections and state legislative elections. So this shows that if we just limit our focus to electoral interventions or to places that have competitive elections, we're really missing out on the work that needs to be done to marginalize extremists and to deal with some of these authoritarian warning signs that we're seeing. Sometimes there's not a competitive election, but there's work to be done to expand public expression, to expand democratic expression. When we asked people what they wanted from ruralorganizing.org in terms of what subject matter they wanted to focus in on, by far the greatest response was standing up to white nationalists. That was what the respondents of the survey wanted to see most of all, followed by staying safe while staying vocal, which kind of speaks to the political violence piece of it. Also, there was the third one was school board advocacy, where we often see the book bans and anti-LGBTQ policies pushed. That was the third most important training or programming that people wanted. And what people wanted to see from ruralorganizing.org was they wanted to see connections to other organizations, support running local campaigns, and many people wanted federal policy advocacy. And I think importantly here, 230 people said they wanted one-on-one coaching. I really wish that we could give one-on-one coaching to 230 people, but this is something that we're taking really seriously and thinking about how we can meet some of those needs. So I wanted to, these are the numbers, but I wanted to pass it off to some people who took the survey to get the stories behind the numbers, because I think there's each of these survey respondents represents a community, a story, and a struggle for greater freedom, I think. So I want to pass it off to Chris Doherty first. Chris, are you on?
I'm here. Yes.
Great.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Doherty. I live in Gig Harbor, Washington. I'm a woman of color, and I started a group here in Gig Harbor called Moms for Peace, kind of as a direct response from Moms for Liberty. We have a huge Moms for Liberty group that speaks at the board meetings. They're against DEI in school. They're anti-LGBTQ. They've tried book banning. So we have about 380 people now in the group, and we are huge advocates at the school board meetings. I've been personally speaking at the high schools with the LGBTQ groups to see if there's anything that they want us to bring up in school. And we are actually, what was great is there is a student that's going to be speaking at a school board meeting, because we feel it's also important for students to speak as well. Since they're the ones who are going to school and they're experiencing everything there in the school district. And they're going to be speaking at the January 30th school board meeting, and they asked if we would be there to support them while they spoke. And so we will be there to support them as well as speak up about that as well. It's a very red town. But we just, a group of us just decided like we've got to start speaking up. Their voice has become too loud.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks, Chris. And next, I wanted to call on Michael Johnson. Michael, are you on?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just was kind of an opinionated progressive in a red town in a red state, and some scary things were starting to happen. And I noticed when I voiced my personal opinion that since I run my grandmother's restaurant, people were starting to boycott the liberal bullies, is what they called it. And that wasn't really fair to my grandmother because it's her business, or my employees because they might not share my political beliefs. So I had to kind of go behind the curtain and organize from the sort of place that I was just fortunate enough to be positioned in, where I made lots of relationships with customers, people in the community, and on civic boards. And we've had everything we've talked about here. It got big with the kind of COVID denier, QAnon MAGA crowd descending on our city council. And we responded quickly by just establishing relationships, especially with everybody from the very progressive side to like the moderate Republican side. And it was really important for us to find allies across political lines. So, I have to be careful not to plaster my car and my social media and myself with everything I believe and my worldview. And I have to sort of like make sure that I channel that where it can be most effective. And, after the COVID stuff, then they tried book bannings, they protested our Justice for Black Lives March. They've done lots of anti-LGBTQ stuff. And we started by identifying those extremists within the group that were sort of couched into the Conservative Party and sort of helping drive them. And they had the strength of numbers when they were not identified. So we had people sort of calling them out, and then they were exposed. We had a guy who was writing neo-Nazi and KKK sympathetic homeschool curriculum for families all over the country to try to indoctrinate their children. And once they were identified, then even the conservatives didn't really want anything to do with them. So that sort of like took some of the, you know, some of the militant nature out of their movements. When we had our meeting about local COVID precautions, we became one of the only, well, became the first and only town in our state to have like a mask mandate and all sorts of COVID precautions. And you could just watch the COVID cases rise as South Dakota rose. We're in Brookings, South Dakota. And then as soon as our safety precautions went into place, it just plummeted and it just dropped. We had scientists, doctors, people from the hospitals. We sort of took a spreadsheet and organized to have everybody show up at the special meeting. And then for the book banning meeting, we ended up with 120 people at the meeting and like 70 who spoke against book bans. And these were librarians, teachers, parents, students, you name it. And it was really important for us to work across those party lines to identify those sort of like key militant folks, and, you know, expose and marginalize them. Sean, did I address everything you wanted me to?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah.
And then I want to call on Lisa. Lisa, are you on?
I am. I'm right here.
All right.
On my screen, we're right next to each other, so that's kind of funny. So I'm like, can't you see me? So hi, I'm Lisa. My last name's pronounced Jolie. So I live in Colorado, and Colorado is very blue as long as you're in the urban corridor. But when you get out to the other parts, like where I live, it's very red. And I wear a lot of hats, but I'm a planning commissioner in my town and in my county, but I'm also sit on the water and sewer board. And I'm a Democrat. I lead this 4th congressional district. I'm the chair of that for the Colorado Democrats. So as I told Sean when we met, I could write a whole book about my town and probably boggle your guys' minds like a made for TV movie. We've done the book bans. We've done a lot of the things that I've heard. But one of the biggest challenges that we actually have in our town is water. And we have plenty of water, but we have such aging infrastructure that we were out of compliance. And so we had to take on about $80 million worth of infrastructure debt in order to build a new water and a wastewater treatment facility. And that's being borne by a very small amount of residents. And I say very small. I think we have like 3,400 taps that are on our water system. And this town is a rural farm town that has this little tiny neighborhood center, if that makes sense. Like most of everything is more spread out. This is built on sugar beets and, you know, small family farms and all of that type of thing. And so part of the problem with having a supermajority Democratic government in Colorado and 2 Democratic senators and 5 Democratic congressional members with only 3 Republicans is that when you get into my area or some of my friends' areas that are on this call today, we have all of our state legislatures are Republicans and they have no power. And so we have no voice. And so we have no way to advocate for help in funding. I mean, 3,000 gallons of water costs over $100 in my community. And we have a higher than normal aging population. We have a lot of veterans here. Again, it's red, right? But we're actually known for how patriotic and all of our veterans here. And it's a great thing. And we have this amazing Vietnam War wall and things like that. But we have no voice. And we have no way to actually have someone higher than our local government advocating for us. And I've been working to try to change that. And I have to work with Republicans in my town. I mean, our board is primarily Republican, and that isn't all a bad thing. Like, some of them are my friends. As long as we don't get outside of local politics, we can work to solve problems. But, you know, one of my best friends, if we talk about January 6th, it'll come to blows, you know? And so I have to keep it very local and I have to learn to find a middle ground, but I also need help finding a voice to take some of this debt off of my town. I mean, we have people on fixed incomes who can't afford that. And this is just like basic essential use. Soon as you get into irrigation in the summertime, you're talking $600 water bills. And that's just untenable, but it's a high arid desert. You know, we're in Colorado. We're above a mile above the sea level, so it's a little bit different here. So, you know, for me, the biggest thing is trying to figure out how to find more federal funding opportunities, and what opportunities exist that we might be eligible for, or at the very least being able to find our voice through finding a way to advocate for help in an area where we really just have no voice at all. And that's really it. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not an unusual
Thank you.
story for rural communities in Colorado.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. So we're gonna go into small groups again now. And we wanted to add, we want you to think about these questions. First of all, when taking the results of the survey and the stories together, what resonated with you the most? What do you see in the results that connects with your experiences? What do you see? What did you hear in the stories that connects with your experiences the most? We're also interested in what surprised you. What didn't you expect? And then, of course, we want to know, based on those things, like, what do you most want to see from ruralorganizing.org going forward? What would you be most interested in participating in? So we're going to go into small groups again. They should be the same small groups. If we, yeah.
Yep,
Can
I've
you
just
do-
opened them. A few folks came in afterwards, so I'll assign those breakout rooms, but hopefully folks will be back where they were before. And Brian mentioned they only had 2 people, so I'm gonna try to boost that group up.
Oh. Annie, can we do this for 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes?
I will do my best. Right now, I'm not seeing an option to put a time limit on it.
Okay.
But let me see. I've assigned everybody, so let me see if I can find the number of minutes. Oh. Oh. There was someone asking not to go into a breakout room, but then it says she's
Okay.
not in the meeting. Do you see a timer going?
I see a timer going at the top of,
Oh.
there's like a breakout rooms window.
Yep, I have the window open and I see the timer now, but I just don't know how to
Mhm.
change it.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, we're a little bit behind anyway, but I wish, maybe, I think when it ends, there's an option to
To leave.
extend it,
Yeah.
right?
Well, there's definitely, I saw an option last time to leave it open, so I can definitely do that, and I'll keep looking through the settings and see if
Okay, maybe I can broadcast, like, we'll be,
it can stay in.
yeah. Until 7:40.
Yeah.
All right, I Googled it. You
Thanks.
cannot extend the timer once it's started, but when the timer ends, Zoom asks if you want to end all the breakout rooms. You can continue in breakout rooms, but without a timer.
Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
okay, I
and
just
you
told
do-
everyone 7:40.
Oh, perfect. I just pushed to keep them open button.
Okay. Okay, should we close all the rooms?
Will do.
Okay, thanks, Annie.
Mhm.
Okay, welcome back. Folks are still coming back. Thanks so much for that conversation. Hopefully you guys had a chance to dig in during the conversation. We wanted to, since there's so many folks on the call, we wanted to hear from you a little bit about what you were talking about in your small breakout rooms. If anyone wants to come off mute and share a little bit of the conversation. And maybe to start us off, I'll ask Mark, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm
Can I
right.
All right, great.
So I thought, first of all, I had one of our speakers, Miss Chobel. I'm butchering the name, so I'm sorry. She's in my group. And then we have a historian also in our group. And so I think some of the things that resonated to us is kind of the small acts of violence. I think we were having trouble defining what violence is because that's an over-encompassing term. And then we kind of stepped back and realized in rural communities, as political bodies, we're kind of isolated. And there's lots of ways that this kind of works, kind of like domestic violence, where it's the small things. It's not necessarily like a punch, literally or metaphorically, but it's also like the gaslighting and the intimidation tactics and the way in which gender and race are kind of used as rhetorical weapons in order to suppress political expression, that we don't necessarily always count as violence. And that kicked off a really kind of thought-provoking discussion for us.
That's great. Thank you for that, Mark. Anyone else like to share? Mark?
So
sorry,
they
you-
basically got to listen to me rant. So in many of these areas, I feel, so we're a 70-30 red area. And of all the local county positions and even state, they're almost all entirely Republicans to begin with. We literally have maybe a handful of Democrats in positions across our county. So they already have control. And, you know, we have had a little bit of the book ban challenges that we beat back in the public library, but it's just a real struggle to get people involved to participate. We can barely get people to run for office. The volunteers for the Democratic Party are in their 70s and 80s, and we struggle to get young people involved to help. And then you get people who have been involved for years and they're just so burned out because literally nothing ever changes.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to push back on the book ban, at least. That sounds great. Paolo, I think you raised your hand next.
You can just, Aletta can go first.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm speaking with Paolo.
Mhm.
Paolo raised the fact that as a young person of color, you know, here we're talking about white nationalism and how do we actually mobilize young people to feel like the party speaks to them. You know, as we know, rural areas are not homogeneous. In fact, they're quite diverse. And I know in Minnesota, some of the most diverse areas are actually in our rural areas because who's moving there, who, you know, for work and affordable housing. And so, you know, if young people run, and we have to, as Democrats, stop, you know, suppressing young people from thinking, you know, young people, queer people, you know, young women from thinking that they can run. We have to support them and begin to build a base because frankly, in the red area that I ran, the average person in the 17 people who turned out in the whole county the average age was 80 of the Democrats. And so, you know, we need a young person to be inspired to stand up and support them and give them the tools to be able to be successful.
Thank you so much, Aletta. Paolo, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that personally speaking, from working with like a national organizations that help young people run for office, there are resources out there to help young people run for office. The issue is that we oftentimes cannot find them, right? I think if you can build a network of young people within these rural communities, and there are these organizations at the national level that can help y'all kind of like connect your local young Democratic candidate who's under 40, who might be LGBTQ plus or a woman or indigenous or a person of color, to a larger network of Democratic elected officials who represent the diversity spectrum that way for support, and to connect them with Run for Something in different organizations that are literally willing to just give you the ability to generate your win number and mobilize young people. And I think that, like, to kind of piggyback off of what Letta said, it's great that we're talking about white nationalism, but we need to figure out a way to defeat it. And I think the best way to defeat it is making sure that we can run diverse young candidates in these small towns, and they can win. And if you guys want to talk some more, I'd be happy to. Cheers. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, and Paolo will have some resources in the chat also for folks. So keep an eye on the chat. Lisa?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to build off of that conversation. It kind of ties into some of the questions I saw in the chat about the my experience in my town just with water is that at least in Colorado, and I don't know how many other people can really relate to this, but the Democratic Party just kind of decided that their win strategy was to focus on the population centers where where the majority of the voters are. And what that has really done is kind of left the rural areas behind. And Colorado is actually more rural than it is anything. And so trying to build up the infrastructure and the outreach and showing up and reminding rural folks, whether they're Democrats or unaffiliated, or even at this point, moderate Republicans, given what, the Trump party is offering and things like that, just showing up and reminding them that they have a vote and a voice has been like the biggest thing that we've been trying to do in Colorado. But to the, you know, and tying that into when people are like, well, you have the, can't you talk to your legislatures or can't you talk to your senators? I mean, I am a state party leader and it took me 9 months to get a conversation with my senator. And he's a Democrat who I know, right? And the state legislature, they are literally passing laws that are detrimental to our small rural communities. And these are our own Democrats, right? Because the focus has been so consistently on the urban areas in the state that rural Democrats have been left behind. So to me, I would love to know, how do you build that infrastructure even better so that collectively as rural Coloradans, we have a voice that counts rather than individually?
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. So unfortunately, we're running up on time, but let's do, if we can do a couple quick comments, Michael and then May.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, in South Dakota, we can always count on at the state level, it's going to go, everything's going to go red. But one of the talking points of the conservatives is no big government. We don't want the federal government to make this decision. No big government at the state level. We want, you know, it should be local control. So when it gets to local control, that's where the fights are happening in line with Project 2025. So they're trying to get on the school boards. They're trying to ban books. They're trying to get on city councils and do all those things. That's where we need to fight. We have nonpartisan local elections. So I wrote a letter to the editor that said basically, you know, because the hyper Republican red candidates were all saying like, let's bring this town back to conservative South Dakota values, blah, blah, blah. So I was on those campaign committees for all the others saying, okay, please do not run an aisle through my city. We're here. We want our local school board, city council to listen to our neighbors and friends and constituents and decide that way. So we had the progressives running on a sane sort of like, don't bring Washington politics into my town, while the conservatives were running a red Trump MAGA kind of candidacy. And that actually won. Out of our entire city council and our school board, I was either on the campaign committees or ran the campaign committees for everybody who won, and every one of them was a progressive. The only one that won a spot who is not was because nobody ran against him. So he just kind of got shooed into that. So
that's amazing. So May, you're going to have the last word. If I can ask Kathleen and Murray to write in the chat. Sorry, we just don't have the time to get to everyone, but really appreciate it. May?
Yeah, I think one thing that resonated in our group was talking about how lots of folks in rural areas don't feel represented in these very, very blue states that have super majorities in their state legislatures. And I think one thing that I've really been trying to focus on is data. Time and time again, we've seen that folks are a lot more responsive to political messaging when we have data that backs up the policies that we're trying to push for. And I think if we could have more resources, more access to accurate, but also easily digestible data to show folks in these rural districts that there are policies that would support them in the concerns that they have, it'd be so much easier to really talk to folks and really get them to listen to our policies. But without that, I think so many folks are just going to be immediately dismissive of anybody who, is a Democrat or calls themselves a progressive. And so I think access to data like that would be a huge resource.
Right. Okay. So there's clearly quite a bit of conversation. Please put the conversation in the chat so everyone can see. And we're coming up on the end here, so I just wanted to go over a few lessons learned and next steps. So I think the first lesson is that our network at Rural Organizing is very large, geographically dispersed, and very active. Getting 850 people to fill out a survey is no small feat, and that makes a real big difference. And getting all of you on this call is really, really amazing. So that's one big lesson. I think the other thing that came through is that most people in our network are facing authoritarian warning signs of one kind or another of varying degrees of severity, but they are warning signs. And finally, there are people looking to be involved in their communities beyond electoral politics, including electoral politics and beyond electoral politics. So I think we heard on the call today, people who are in very red territory, people who are in red territory in red states, red territory in blue states. There might not be a local outlet for their organizing, but they're looking to marginalize extremists, work across the aisle, open up civic space, and kind of put down some of those authoritarian warning signs. So next steps, so I think based on the survey, we will be doing this training on staying safe while staying vocal and on white nationalism. We'll be working with partners that can help us do that. And so please keep an eye out for that. We will be doing more programming on school board advocacy because that was also a really high priority for people. And, as an organizing director, I will be sending text to everyone who opted in to texting. So everyone here on this call who signed up, there was a thing where you put your phone number and you said whether or not you wanted to opt into texting. Everyone who opted in, you'll be getting a text from me in the next couple of days, and we'll set up a time to talk. And if you haven't opted in, just really when you hear from us, please opt in because it's the easiest way for us to stay in contact with you. We don't spam you. It's coming from a real person. Like I'm on the other end of the line. So yeah, please do that. It just helps us stay in contact. We also plan on, because of the really high level of interest, we plan on identifying a small cohort of about 10 local leaders for coaching and in-depth support. So please be in contact with me at my email, Sean@Rural Organizing, if you're interested in that. And the other thing that I'd like to know from all of you is what more would you like to see from ruralorganizing.org? We just got a chance to scratch the surface today, but please, we want to keep the lines of communication open. So please be in contact with me, and you can even schedule a time with me at this Calendly link so that we can have a one-on-one. And I know that you all had some great conversations in the small group. So we can put in the chat a connection to, or a link to, it's in the chat already, a link to the Facebook post about this call, and you can talk to one another there.
And hey, Sean, this is Matt. We can also leave the Zoom open for a while. I can sit on
Yeah.
and close out when people are done. So if people want to talk after we're done here, we can just leave the lines open.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I do want to be respectful of people's time. But we also, I'll be on afterwards also. Before we go off, I wanted to do one poll here. So if we define a leader as someone who works with at least 2 other people on a project in their community, the question is, are you a leader? Are you interested in becoming a leader? Are you working with a leader in your community? Or would you like to join a project that someone else leads? So if we could deploy that poll now, just very quickly, so we can get a sense of the folks on the call. Are folks seeing it?
Yep, we've got responses coming in. They're slowing down, so
Okay.
maybe another 10 seconds and then we'll close
Great,
it.
great. Sorry, I just can't see it on my end.
All right, I'm going to close it
Great.
and I'm going to share the results. Oh,
Tom, was it supposed to pop up again?
No.
It did.
sorry about that. I might have pushed it twice by accident. Let's try again.
Okay.
Are you all able to see the results now?
Yes.
I never saw the poll.
Oh, okay, shoot.
Okay, that's okay. Well, we'll be in communication. We have other ways of being in communication. We'll take the poll results that we do have. So I just wanted to end because last week was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and you know, he's obviously an inspiration to all of us. And we talked a lot about our communities standing up to injustice and helping one another. So I'll read this quote from Martin Luther King. "When I'm commanded to love, I'm commanded to restore community, to resist injustice, and to meet the needs of my brothers." So thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we're going to stay on the line for anyone who wants to stay on and chat. I know that there were a lot of raised hands. So thank you everyone else for joining, and we'll be here. Great. I'm seeing some raised hands. Hold on one second. Oh, yeah. Paolo, is that your raised hand?
I am so sorry, Sean. I forgot to lower
That's
it.
all right. Jacqueline? Jacqueline Drechsler? If you're talking, you're on mute. Okay. The White Pine County Democrats?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. First, Sean, thank you for putting this on. It's wonderful to see these direct results, like what you're presenting, and look forward to seeing more. What I wanted to find out is, for Nevada, you had 2, maybe 3 dots. Las Vegas, I don't remember if Reno was there, but then northeastern Nevada, which is Elko County, a rural county, and it's just north of White Pine County, the county that I'm the chair of. So those results will be very similar to us here. Is there any way to get local results?
Local results on the survey?
Yes.
I mean, you'd have to share the survey. Oh, well, I mean, do you want to know what the results are just for Nevada?
Yes, or that northeastern corner.
Yeah, actually, I think there is. Let me, can you put your email in the chat and I will get back to you on that?
Okie dokie.
Great.
I can make this thing work, right?
Hi there. It's Jackie Drexler. Can you
Hi.
hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I'm so sorry I got onto this call very late. I hope since it was recorded, maybe you'll be sending it out.
Yeah.
I will tell you, so I'm not in a rural community. I live near the Hudson River, near the Tappan Zee Bridge, in a county that probably has about 325,000 people. Rockland County, we're about 20 miles from New York City. But it feels rural in many ways. And there's a lot of disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and education and access to healthcare and access to the internet, all sorts of things, And I just wanted to say, I for years now, I've loved reading the Rural News. It's just that news magazine is just fantastic. It really shows us what's going on in other places that we're just not aware of here in the New York area. So I'm glad I saw this in that. And I hope that you'll send me this, because even though I'm not in a rural area, I'm sure there's so much I can learn from you and bring back to my community. We have a lot of social justice groups and a lot of work that we have to do, especially in education. I don't want to take up all the space here, but we have a situation in one of our school districts where the kids haven't been able to drink the water in the school for 7 years because of lead.
Oh, wow.
We have the issue of huge issues of asthma, huge issues of a school board that is all white men who've taken over all of the resources from the actual public school kids. So it's an interesting situation. It feels pretty rural to me. So anyway, I hope to know more about your group and to stay in touch. You'll keep me in the loop. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have my email address, right, Jackie?
I don't think so, because I'm not sure. I don't even see your name here. I'm not.
I'll put it in the chat again.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, great.
Hey, now, am I good now?
You're good. You're good.
Thank you, Sean. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Our organization, the Outrun Coalition, we're a collective of about 400 local Democratic elected officials from across 15 states. And we help rural county Democratic parties kind of challenge the kind of like inability of folks wanting to run for office in small towns and stuff like that. And we do these trainings for free across Zoom. It's myself and a large group of young, diverse local Democratic elected officials, all of them who've had to like either outrun Biden or oust a Republican in their local town board or village board or school board and stuff like that. And so tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. via Zoom, we're doing a training with a coalition of Eastern Kentucky Democratic parties and the Appalachian region, the Young Democrats. And I'm going to put my info in here. And thank you to Matt and Sean for letting us kind of promote this. And yeah, here's, I'm going to put my info in there as well.
Right. Murray?
Sure, thanks very much. I put this information in the chat. Hopefully people are aware of the books by David Pepper from Ohio, who he talks about the importance of working and how you can turn rural legislatures and the importance of control of legislatures, because a lot of times I'm from Minnesota, and as you know, right now, Minnesota is pretty much blue, but rural Minnesota is very heavily red, and it used to be blue. So there's some things and work that needs to get done. And then I've heard people talk about being concerned about violence and people that are kind of threatening they work with, and that's why I posted the other book. Obviously, there's a lot of resources, and these are just one of, but I've found this to be pretty good. It's called Surviving Aggressive People. And then a third area is about money and power. And I don't know if you're aware of, but a real good group to pay attention to are the patriotic millionaires, people who are millionaires who are asking to be taxed. Please tax us. And they have a group called the American Deciders that meet monthly. And I'm part of that group too. I go to those regularly, and that's why I put that other book they just published. And it's excellent because it deals with the myths that you're struggling with. Because I know somebody mentioned from South Dakota, you know, as an example of South Dakota, as you know, is very red, but they're also not, the rural areas are very poor, sadly. And a lot of the times the people, and we've all seen this, where people are voting against their own interests and don't, you know, support themselves and kind of buy into this thing of being physically responsible that the right says they are, but in reality, they really aren't. And the people like us, the average person, are carrying around the wealthiest Americans on our back because of the policies that have been passed. But people have to know how to fight back against that. And that's where these resources help. You know, they talk about job creators and trickle down and all that, and it's just garbage. It's not something that helps people. It only helps certain groups, corporations and the wealthiest. So these are resources to help people fight back. And the more we can do that, the better, and help people running in rural areas, because one of our frustrations is we think sometimes the state and national parties have not done enough to invest in rural candidates and rural people. And we need to do more of that. So your group is helping on that, and we appreciate it very much. So thanks.
Thank you. And so the White County Dems again is do you have another comment?
Well, just a request. I'm on my cell phone right now.
Yeah.
So there are certain functions apparently I don't have, including being able to download a copy of the chat.
Oh,
Could you possibly, I've got my name and or my email address in there on the chat. Could you possibly make a copy and send it out to me or somebody? Or
yeah, I'll make a note of that. Okay, yeah, I've made a note of it.
all right. Thank you.
If you're doing follow-ups, how about sending it to all of us?
Sending the chat to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can.
Yeah, Sean, we can do that. We can we can pull the links from the chat and send that around.
Okay.
Or we could send the whole chat, but it will be pages of text. So we'll try and pull the useful stuff from the chat and send that around.
Great, thank you very much.
Great. Anyone else?
I don't know if it's like I think it's a huge deal that there's like a rural organizing pack talking about white nationalism. I don't think a lot of rural organizing Democratic groups are willing to do that. So it's a big deal that there is one out there that's willing to do that. And I hope that like trickles down into like places like upstate New York where we're literally afraid to deal with the immigrant crisis because they're afraid of a backlash.
This is Susan in Alaska. One of the things that's concerning me is the young people who ought to be progressive are just so disillusioned. And how we inspire them to vote and to get involved seems a critical issue.
Absolutely.
You have to find a hook for the young people, some sort of hook that resonates with them.
Oftentimes it's also showing them other young people that have won in small towns and young people that aren't necessarily, like sometimes straight white guys.
And also it's important to remind them that that's part of the plan, is to make people get discouraged and quit and drop out so they can stay in it. Because when you hear the right complain about government, you notice they don't leave government. They're still in it because they want to control it. They want you to quit. And I've told people that numerous times that want to give up and say, don't do it, because that's exactly what they want you to do, is quit and give up. And so, but you need help and you need support from people. And this is an example of that. So you got to stay in the fight however you can.
And then also, how do we get, you were talking about Paulo there, where the showing them people, young people from other rural areas, but there's really no convenient way of getting that data and being able to show them, look what these people are doing over here. It can be done. There are reasons for you to vote. Or I'll call your mom and tell her to kick your butt out of that gaming chair and go vote.
If I could reply just really quick, if you're interested, and Sean, maybe you can connect us, we host our free diversity and candidate recruitment trainings, where I will bring a panel of 6 or 7 local Democratic elected officials from across the country who will donate 5 minutes of their time to talk about their experience running for office as like a young trans person or a young person of color, and so that we can help your county party kind of like transcend all those issues that people have to kind of find younger folks, because they are out there. If you go to Target or Panera or something in a small town, everyone working there is a young person.
Mhm.
And if I could suggest something, Sean and Matt, maybe it would be really cool if we had like a young rural progressive Zoom meetup.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
definitely take that help.
Anyone else? All
Just
right.
real quick to Paolo. I just mentioned, just thought about this. Paolo, my email address is in the chat. So if you want to reach out directly to me for that, that would be great.
Donna, if you can help me find the email later, I'd really appreciate it at some
Yeah,
point.
I've got it written down.
Thank you.
I'll send it to you. And Chris also requested your email here. Oh, Matt put it in the chat. I'm gonna put Paolo's email here. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great evening. Bye.
Good evening. Stay safe.